Number 10. The Pike County Massacre. On the night of April 21st, 2016, the Roden family was just about wiped out. 8 people belonging to the Roden family were shot and killed in 4 different houses throughout Pike County in Ohio. All 8 of the victims were killed, 7 of them execution style. The whole bloodline was nearly eradicated in one coordinated attack. This case was one of the worst massacres in Ohio history, and investigators were hot on the case. They believed the murders were premeditated and that whoever committed the awful killings had known the Roden family intimately. 4 days after the murders, the police discovered 2 illegal operations at the scenes of the crimes. The Roden family had been growing marijuana plants, and they were operating an underground cockfighting ring. The evidence led investigators to assume the killings were criminally motivated, perhaps by a rival crime family. As police would soon discover, their assumptions were correct. Between April 2016 and November 2018, the most extensive investigation in Ohio history unfolded. The police were hot on the trail of the killers. Then, 4 members of the Wagner family were finally arrested in both Ohio and Kentucky. Edward Wagner admitted to being the ringleader and pleaded guilty to all 8 murders. He was given 8 consecutive life sentences, but it wasn't anything to do with crime. It was all because of a custody dispute between Edward Wagner and Hannah Roden. And believe it or not, the trial is still going on. George Wagner will go to trial in August 2022. He's Edward's older brother. Angela Wagner, the family's mother, is also waiting to be sentenced for her role in the killings. Number 9. Burning the disabled. A mother and daughter duo were arrested after purposely burning a disabled woman. It happened back in May 2020. Lauren Victoria Alvarez, 19 years old, and her mother, Tamara Ray Buck, were arrested following allegations that they had repeatedly burned the disabled woman with a marijuana pipe, repeatedly and deliberately. This crime all went down at Tamara's house, who was dating the disabled woman's father at the time of the incident. The victim had known the family for many years. She had no serious problems with them before, and yet something went seriously wrong on this day. If you're wondering what kind of disability the victim has, she's physically disabled and can't walk. In allegations against Lauren and her mother, she says both women forced her into bed, stood over her and smoked marijuana out of a metal pipe. They pressed the pipe against her bare chest, giving her severe burns. Lauren, Tamara, and their friend all took turns burning her. There was no real motive behind the burning. It looks like the mother and daughter got a little too high and thought it would be fun to pick on someone who couldn't defend themselves. Although most experts agree smoking pot doesn't usually result in violent behavior. They weren't arrested but released the same day. Number 8. Texas bank robbers. In southeastern Texas, a family of bank robbers got caught. The father and his 2 adult children performed a pair of bank robberies in Texas and a string of robberies in Portland and Oregon. Ronald Catt was the father, joined in this crime spree by his son Hayden and daughter Abigail. This is one of those stories many people might sympathize with. After Ronald's wife's death, he faced financial difficulties. Things were tough on his kids, and to bolster the family income, he resorted to a life of robbing banks. And who better to help him than his very own family? Starting in 2000, Ronald began robbing banks by himself. He got away with 5 bank robberies in Portland. He robbed one bank every year, netting about $5,000 or $10,000 for each job. But then, in 2010, his kids were finally old enough to carry their weight. In 2012, they moved to Texas as a family of bank robbers. They robbed the Comerica Bank in Harris County on August 9th, with the men going inside armed with airsoft guns, while Abigail waited outside in the getaway vehicle. They then committed another robbery at the First Community Credit Union on November the 9th. They ended up earning themselves $170,000 from the 2 robberies. Unfortunately for the family, they made one huge error. The police could identify the orange safety vests they wore during the robbery. They then linked the vests to the Home Depot. The investigators clearly saw the siblings purchasing the safety vest when they checked security footage. As a result, Hayden was given 10 years, his sister 5, even though they committed the same crime and were found guilty of the same thing. Ronald was given 24 years. Abigail was given parole in September 2015 after spending less than 3 years locked up. However, she was thrown back in jail less than a year later because of parole violations. Number 7. The Kelly family. For those who don't know, the Kelly family was the sickest bunch of serial killers of the 19th century. They were a family of monsters, actual psychopaths like out of a Rob Zombie movie. The Kelly family operated near a small Kansas town for just 1 year in 1887. In Oak City, William Kelly, his wife Kate, their son Bill, and daughter Kit murdered 11 people between August and December. We don't know too much about the history of the Kelly family. Historians believe they moved from Pennsylvania to Kansas in 1869. Anything before that is off the record. They first got into the cattle business, but later opened a tavern in no man's land about 25 miles, 40 kilometers from the city of Beaver. They were illiterate and poor, but worked hard, so nobody suspected anything was wrong with them. But it was later that fateful year when the locals got suspicious. Within just a few months, the disappearances were adding up, and everyone who disappeared did so while going down the lonely road to the Kelly Tavern. The Kelly family were taking wealthy travelers off the road, stealing their stuff, and then dumping them in a hidden cellar beneath the house after murdering them, usually with an axe. By the time they were caught, they were already fleeing. They had abandoned the town with all the money they earned by robbing people. However, they didn't get too far. A posse of men was organized. They flew after them on their horses, and the whole family was wiped out. Kate snapped her neck, falling from her house, and the other 3 were hanged right there on the nearest tree. Number 6. Father-daughter crime. A father and his daughter were arrested back in September 2015 for robbing a bank in Grandview, Texas. The father, 41-year-old Michael Bailey, walked into the bank at around noon on a Thursday afternoon, while his 19-year-old daughter Megan stayed in the car. They got away with an undisclosed amount of money, then fled the scene. But these guys weren't experienced bank robbers, and they didn't get very far. The cops caught up to them immediately, resulting in an insanely high-speed chase through 2 local counties. At one point, Michael reached speeds of up to 150 miles per hour, while his daughter hung on for dear life in the passenger seat. Of course, you can't just get away from the cops like you're Fast and Furious, not in the middle of nowhere in Texas. They crashed into a ditch, were arrested, and charged with aggravated robbery. Number 5. TikTok mom and daughter killers. A moderately famous social media influencer from the UK who made a satirical video on TikTok about killing somebody was actually just charged with murder. Not only her, but also her mother. The social media influencer is Mahek Bukhara, 22 years old. Her mother is Ansreen, who appeared in plenty of Mahek's uploads. According to the police, the duo and a third woman named Natasha chased down 2 of their male friends and drove them off the road, killing both young men. It happened in the early hours of February 11, 2022. Nobody knows what happened inside the car carrying those 3 women, except for them. But what the police know is that, for whatever reason, their vehicle pushed the vehicle carrying Saqib and Mohammed. Maybe the influencer and her mother thought they were being funny by messing around in the car at high speed. Whatever the case, they are directly responsible for the deaths of these 2 men. They've been arrested and charged with murder, regardless of Mahek living her best life with over 120,000 followers. Number 4. Family killers. William Porter and his daughter Selena Porter are facing some pretty severe charges regarding the death of their neighbor back in 2018. William is looking at second-degree murder, while Selena is looking at an accessory after the fact to murder. It all came after David Brady's body was discovered off the side of a rural road in Lakeland, Florida. According to the local deputies, the trouble started when Williams and Brady drank some beer together. Brady allegedly made an inappropriate comment about Williams' daughter. The two got into a serious argument. Brady physically attacked William and even drew a gun. Then, according to what William said, he took the gun away from Brady and shot him in the chest. This is one of those tricky things for the police to sort out. Considering Brady is dead and can't exactly tell his side of the story, there's no way to know what happened except by looking at the evidence. The biggest issue for the police is that William and his daughter loaded the dead man's body into the truck, drove him 40 miles, 64 kilometers away, and then dumped him on the side of the road. If it had been self-defense, the duo probably wouldn't have needed to get rid of the body. Number 3. Bringing the baby. A mother and daughter duo, Debbie and Gloria Montoya, were accused in 2022 of scavenging for goods at the house of a dead guy. In March, the pair were arrested near Albuquerque for scrounging around in a place they didn't belong. When the police asked what the women were doing there, they said they had just been driving by and noticed there were no locks on the door, so they poked around. But here's the awful thing. When the deputies searched their blue Ford Focus parked out of the house, they discovered a 9-month-old baby hiding inside. The baby was practically rolling around in filth. There were meth pipes in the car, throwing knives, nunchucks, and brass knuckles. These women were loaded up like meth-addicted ninjas and were out breaking into empty houses looking for scraps. They weren't the worst women to ever walk the planet, but they were rooting around in dead people's houses looking for valuables with an infant rolling around on top of piles of throwing knives. The baby was taken away, and both women were hauled off to jail. Number 2. ARBERY'S killers. On February 23, 2020, Travis McMichael and his father, Gregory McMichael, armed themselves to the teeth and chased down a man named Ahmaud Arbery. The father and son pair were assisted by a third man named William Bryan, who was their neighbor. The thing was that these 3 guys saw Ahmaud jogging down the street in the neighborhood of Satilla Shores in Glynn County, Georgia. With absolutely no proof and no reasonable cause for concern, they assumed the 25-year-old black man was running because he had just committed a crime. But he was just trying to get some exercise. What happened next was a family hate crime. With the help of their neighbor, father and son followed Ahmaud for several minutes. They worked themselves into such a frenzy that they got out of their truck, beat him with a shotgun, and blasted him 3 times. The neighbor recorded the entire thing on his phone, making it a pretty quick case to deal with for the authorities. At least, it should have been. Instead, the Glynn County Police Department tried to sweep the incident under the rug. It wasn't until the video of the killing leaked and went viral that any arrests were made. It went viral on May 5th, 2020. The McMichaels were arrested 2 days later, and 2 weeks after that, they were charged with felony murder. Both father and son got life in prison, plus 20 years. Number 1. Cold case murders. A SWAT team in Los Angeles County descended on a residence at 4:30 a.m. in September 2021. They took into custody Anthony Velasquez and his father Manuel Velasquez. Police believe the father and son duo are connected to 3 separate murders going back to 2014. The arrests only came after the police offered an $80,000 reward for anyone who could provide pertinent information on the case. An unidentified source took the chance to make themselves a whole heap of money and ratted the father and son out. It turned out Anthony shot Jesse Valos to death in February 2014, but he also shot Eduardo Robles in July 2015 after getting into an argument in the driveway of a residence. And finally, Amanda Lopez, only 27 years old, was shot to death in April 2018 in the middle of the night. She was killed while asleep in her tent near a homeless encampment. Anthony Vasquez turned out to be a kind of low-key serial killer, with his father helping him in all 3 cases. Unfortunately, he was there to support his murdering child, or at least behind the wheel of the getaway car. And to be honest, it's a good thing they got caught when they did. The first 2 killings may have been over some arguments, but the third one, the slaying of the innocent homeless woman, was clearly a random act of violence. If these 2 hadn't been locked up, who knows how many more people they would have tried to prey on. Would you rather grow up in an orphanage or with deranged parents and siblings? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you again soon for another shocking video. Bye.